Let me ask you something real. Have you ever poured your heart into someone only for them to pull away the moment things got deep? 1 minute you're close, the next it's like you're talking to a ghost in a body. But what if I told you that in just 7 words, 7 moves, and 7 days, you could flip the script so hard? You the one chasing you. This isn't manipulation. This is mastery. Avoidants don't respond to your pleas. They don't hear your paragraphs of pain. They don't wake up at 2 a.m. haunted by your carefully worded messages. Why? Because it's not what you say that shifts them. It's the energy behind it. The moment you change your energy, you change the entire dynamic, everything they've gotten used to. The rhythm of you always being available, always reaching out, always forgiving, always explaining starts to fall apart. And that sudden shift, that disruption, that silence, it rattles them, because avoidants expect you to stay in the loop of overgiving. They expect you to keep trying harder. Even when they pull away, they've been conditioned to believe they hold the power. And honestly, for a while they do, until you snap that cord from within. When your energy shifts from, I need you, to, I choose myself, they feel it instantly. Not in their mind, in their nervous system. They feel the absence of pressure, the vacuum of pursuit. And guess what? That vacuum becomes mysteriously attractive. See, when your energy is needy or anxious, even if your words are calm, they subconsciously sense it. You can't fake it. You can't mask panic with poetic texts or clever manipulation. They know. But when your energy becomes grounded, centered, focused, everything about you changes. You're no longer acting from fear. You're not trying to convince them to love you. You're simply standing in your own power, quiet, unshaken, present. That's when they start to get curious. Now they're wondering, wait, what happened? Where did the old version of you go? They may not admit it, but something inside them starts to stir, because the energy they were used to feeding off of is gone. It's not anger. It's not revenge. It's not cold-hearted detachment. It's sovereignty, and it's magnetic. Let me be clear, you don't shift your energy to manipulate them. You shift it because chasing someone who's emotionally unavailable is an insult to the powerful, loving, deeply connected version of you that's been asleep. And the moment that version wakes up, the avoidant is no longer the one in control. You are. Because when your energy says, I'm not here to beg, I'm here to build, everything, and I mean everything, starts to flip. There's a moment in every connection with an avoidant where you feel the sting of invisibility. You could be sitting right beside them, talking, laughing, reaching, and yet it feels like they're somewhere else, locked behind a wall you can't climb. And in that moment, you want to scream, cry, prove your worth, do something to pull them closer. But that's where everything starts to break. Because every time you try to earn love, you're telling your nervous system you don't deserve it unless you fight. And this is where the 7 words come in. I respect myself too much for this. These words aren't just something you say in a mirror. They're a declaration, a shift, a line in the sand. Because respect is the foundation of every healthy connection. And if you don't hold it for yourself, the avoidant certainly won't hand it to you. Respect creates boundaries. Boundaries create value, and value creates attraction. When you internalize these 7 words, everything changes. Not just in how you deal with the avoidant, but in how you walk through life. Suddenly, you stop responding to breadcrumbs. You stop justifying their distance. You stop lowering your emotional standards to match their emotional fear. And instead, you send a signal, not with rage, not with revenge, but with certainty. I respect myself too much for this confusion, for this push-pull, for this emotional hide and seek. Now, here's the secret. Avoidants don't chase people who chase them. They chase people who stand still, people whose energy says, I am not for sale. I am not on discount. I am not available for half love or halfway affection. These 7 words, when backed by real action, real alignment, real self-worth, become a force field, not a wall, but a filter. It tells the world, and the avoidant specifically, if you want to be close to me, you have to come correct. I'm no longer lowering my standards to meet your wounds. And when you hold that line, not from ego, but from truth, you stop looking like an option. You become a standard, a challenge, a mirror, and nothing flips an avoidant faster than realizing the person who used to chase now respects themselves enough to walk away. Not bitter, but better. There's a fundamental truth. You need to burn into your mind right now the person who chases is always less valued by the person being chased, especially in the world of avoidant attachment. The more you give, the more they retreat. The more you offer, the more they pull away. Not because you're not enough, but because in their mind, closeness equals danger. And when you're always available, always showing up, always trying to prove yourself, they stop seeing you as a prize and start seeing you as a given. To flip the dynamic, you don't just act like the prize, you become the prize. That means doing the deep inner work to reclaim your power, your presence, and your purpose. You stop molding yourself to be digestible. You stop walking on eggshells trying to avoid their shutdowns. You stop asking, how do I get them to choose me? And instead start asking, why did I ever forget that I'm the one worth choosing? See, high-value people don't beg. They don't over-explain. They don't chase love that runs. They attract from a place of self-certainty, not arrogance, but embodiment. And embodiment is magnetic. It's silent. It doesn't need to scream or prove. It walks into a room and shifts the atmosphere. That's what happens when you stop being the pleader and become the prize. And let's be honest, becoming the prize isn't about games. It's about growth. You work on your health. You build your vision. You reconnect with the version of you that existed before the emotional roller coaster. You stop losing sleep over unread messages and start losing yourself in purpose, passion, and presence. You don't do it to get a reaction from them. You do it to reconnect with yourself. Because when you're truly in your power, avoidants feel it. They may not say it, but it hits them. That energy they used to depend on is no longer chasing. That love they thought was guaranteed now has requirements. You've become someone who doesn't need them. And that's when they start to feel something they've spent their life avoiding desire. And not for just anyone, for you. The version of you that stopped waiting and started rising. The version of you that flipped the script, not with tricks, but with transformation. Avoidants aren't heartless. They're not soulless. And they're not incapable of love. What they are is wired to protect themselves from closeness. It's not a choice, it's a survival response. They've been trained by early experiences to see intimacy as a threat, not a sanctuary. So when things start to feel emotionally intense, even good intense, their instinct isn't to lean in, it's to lean out. This is where most people go wrong. You try to fight their distance with more closeness. You send longer messages, pour out more of your heart, offer more reassurance. But to an avoidant, that feels like pressure, even if your intention is love, and pressure makes them run. It's not personal, it's patterned. So what do? You stop trying to speak your emotional language and start learning theirs. You learn to make space your superpower. You understand that emotional distance isn't always rejection. Sometimes it's regulation. And instead of reacting to their silence with panic, you match it with calm. You don't punish them. You don't chase them. You don't try to force a breakthrough. You create emotional breathing room. And in that space, something surprising happens. They feel safe, safe to miss you, safe to wonder about you, safe to re-engage without feeling overwhelmed. It's not about playing cold or acting like you don't care. It's about mastering the art of restraint, of not needing constant validation, of letting your silence speak confidence instead of fear. Sometimes no response is the response, not to provoke them, but to protect your peace. When you learn to communicate in their language, the language of space, stability, and self-regulation, they start to feel something they've always longed for but never fully trusted: safety without suffocation. That's when the walls begin to loosen. That's when the armor cracks. Because the truth is, avoidants aren't afraid of you. They're afraid of losing themselves. But when they see you're not here to trap them, fix them, or force them, when they see you can hold space without falling apart, that's when they start to lean in, quietly, slowly, but genuinely. Not because you demanded it, but because your presence gave them room to choose it. Avoidants don't respond to intensity. They respond to equilibrium. When you show too much emotion too soon, they interpret it as a threat, not a connection. That's why matching their moves is crucial, but not just to play it safer, to stay in your power. When they pull back, your instinct might be to go all in. But when you do that, you're teaching them that they can disappear and you'll compensate. You'll overfunction. You'll stretch. You'll beg for closeness. And whether they know it or not, that creates a dynamic where they hold the power and you're dancing for scraps. So instead, you mirror. You don't panic when they disappear. You don't reach when they withdraw. You match their pace, their tone, their energy. But you do it from a place of inner strength, not passive aggression. You give space with intention, not silence as a punishment. And while you're matching, you're also mastering a second, more potent move, mystery. Avoidants are drawn to the unknown. They're stimulated by curiosity. When you're always available, always transparent, always predictable, the mystery dies. But when you retreat into your own world, not to punish, but to expand, you become intriguing again. They begin to wonder, where are you emotionally? What's going on with you? Why do I feel your absence more than I expected? That's where the power shifts. You don't need to ghost them. You simply become less obvious. You stop being their emotional mirror. You start becoming a window into something deeper, something they don't quite understand but feel pulled toward. Your responses slow down. Your social energy moves elsewhere. Your life gets louder even as your voice toward them gets quieter. And here's the key. While they expect you to collapse into anxiety or over-explaining, you do the opposite. You rise, you expand, you invest in yourself. You make your absence feel like a presence, not because you're being strategic, but because you're stepping into your worth. You're not ignoring them. You're no longer orbiting them. This triggers something ancient in them, the fear of losing what they once thought they had control over. And suddenly, the emotional dynamic is no longer one-sided. Now you are the one being chased not because you demanded it, but because you became someone they can't predict, can't define, and can't stop thinking about. Flipping the dynamic with an avoidant isn't random. It's not luck. It's not waiting endlessly for them to change. It's a strategy, a rhythm, a rewire, a reclaiming of your center. And when done with precision, it can shift the entire energy field between you and them. This is where the 7-day method becomes your power move, not to manipulate, but to reset the emotional balance that's been off from the very beginning. In the first 2 days, everything begins with silence and stillness, not the silence of punishment, the silence of self-respect. You stop reacting, you stop reaching, you stop filling the space they created when they emotionally retreated. You pull your energy back fully. Not halfway, not secretly checking if they've noticed. This is the detox phase. You're not just removing them. You're removing your need to be seen by them. On days 3 and 4, you start building again, not with them, but with yourself. You engage with your life. You post not to provoke, but to project your growth. You revisit your goals. You reconnect with people who remind you of your worth. This is where your energy starts to shift from scarcity to strength. You're showing not just them, but yourself, that you don't need their validation to feel alive. You're reclaiming your power in public and private. Then comes the pivot, days 5 and 6. Now, if the energy feels right and only if you're truly detached, you drop a breadcrumb, not a paragraph, not a heart-spilling confession, just a subtle sign of life, a story, a joke, a short check-in. Something that doesn't ask for anything but reminds them you exist, and not as the version who once begged, but as the version who now walks with calm confidence. By day 7, you let the echo return, or not. You stop tracking, you stop watching, because now the energy you poured into chasing has been reinvested into becoming. And the universe, or call it their subconscious, begins to feel the shift. You've become emotionally unpredictable. Unavailable in the best way. They feel the absence. The gap you used to fill effortlessly is now empty, and that emptiness has weight. The key isn't what happens in the 7 days. The key is who you become in those 7 days. Someone who doesn't wait to be chosen, but chooses themselves so completely, the avoidant is left staring into the mirror you no longer hold up for them. Let's get brutally honest. This entire journey was never just about flipping the avoidant. That was the bait. That was the surface-level motivation that got you to dig deeper. But the real breakthrough, the transformation that actually changes your life, is when you stop focusing on flipping them and start focusing on flipping yourself. Because the truth is, you were never just chasing them. You were chasing a version of you that didn't believe they were enough without being wanted. What if the avoidance rejection wasn't a curse, but a mirror? What if their distance wasn't a punishment, but a wake-up call? Every time they pulled away, it triggered the old wound in you, the one that whispers, "You're not lovable unless someone chooses you." And that's the version of you that chased, that begged, that shrank to fit inside their emotional comfort zone. But now you're done. You're not here to beg for breadcrumbs anymore. You're not shrinking. You're not performing. You're not asking how to get them to stay. You're asking how to stand so strong in your own truth that the right person can't help but be drawn to it. That's real power. That's real healing. That's real magnetism. You see, when you truly flip yourself emotionally, spiritually, energetically, you no longer resonate with the same patterns. You stop entertaining hot and cold love. You stop confusing emotional chaos with passion. You stop craving the roller coaster because you've tasted the calm of your own alignment. You no longer measure your worth by someone else's inconsistency. And ironically, that's when the avoidant notices. Not just the change in your behavior, but the change in your essence. You're no longer waiting. You're not angry. You're not distant. You're different. The version of you who once made them feel powerful through your vulnerability is gone. And in their place stands someone magnetic, self-possessed, and unshakably calm. When you flip yourself, you flip the script. You stop being the wounded chaser and start becoming the emotionally unavailable person's greatest challenge, someone they can't control, can't predict, and can't forget. Because at the end of the day, this journey isn't about getting them back. It's about getting you back. The version of you who never had to beg for love in the first place. So let's come full circle. You came here wondering how to flip the avoidant, how to make the one who runs finally turn around and chase. But what you've discovered is far more powerful than just a strategy to win someone back. You've discovered the truth, that real transformation doesn't happen by forcing someone else to change. It happens when you rise, when you stop shrinking, when you stop handing your power over to someone who's too afraid to hold it. Because chasing love that hides doesn't make you devoted. It makes you disconnected from your own worth. This entire journey, the 7 words, the 7 moves, the 7 days, it's not a formula for manipulation. It's a blueprint for reclaiming your identity. Every step you take away from anxious chasing is a step toward emotional mastery. Every time you choose silence over self-sabotage, mystery over messiness, calm over chaos, you're not just flipping the avoidant, you're flipping the narrative of your life. You're no longer the character waiting to be chosen. You're the one doing the choosing now, and that shift echoes in everything. Understand this: avoidants don't fall for words, they fall for energy. They are drawn to the person who doesn't need them, but who chooses from a place of wholeness. And the moment you stop trying to prove your worth to them, they start feeling your value. They start feeling the absence of your old self, the one who used to chase. And that silence, that change in rhythm, that inner shift, that's what pulls them in. Not because you begged, but because you became bigger than the pattern. But the most beautiful part of all this, once you've flipped yourself, once you've stepped into this version of you that's grounded, magnetic, and clear, you may not even want them back, because from this higher place, you can finally see clearly. You realize love isn't about intensity games or trying to rescue someone from their fears. It's about 2 whole people choosing each other from a place of emotional safety. And if they can't meet you there, you won't lower your frequency to chase them. You'll bless their journey and keep walking in yours. So if you remember anything from this, remember this: you are not here to beg for love. You are here to embody it. You are not here to chase people who are afraid of your light. You are here to own it so boldly that they either rise to meet you or fade behind you. Flip the avoidant, yes, but more importantly, flip into the version of yourself who no longer settles for anything less than deeply connected, fully aligned, soul-level love. Because that is who you were always meant to be. Thank you for watching. Truly, if this message spoke to something deep inside you, know that it wasn't by accident. You're not alone on this journey, and every time you choose growth over chasing, self-respect over reaction, you're becoming the version of you that no longer settles for half love. If you found value in this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you never miss a moment of empowerment and transformation. Drop your thoughts, stories, or questions in the comments. I read every single one. And remember, this space is more than content. It's a movement toward emotional freedom. Until next time, take care, stand tall, protect your peace, and always choose you first. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you in the next one.